Okie dokie. Let's see here. So, today, to get started, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Hopefully, in a series of new videos of different topics, but generally the same topic, which is collecting. I'm going to be doing basically market recaps once a week of different collectibles. And what I'm going to be doing is essentially going through categories of collectibles that we used to collect. If there's something that you want to cover, like whether it's Beanie Babies, if you want to know one particular collectible that you happen to have, if you want me to try and get kind of like an estimate based on eBay prices only, send me a message. Maybe I will do a single video on just that one or on that category and include that one in particular. But today what we're going to be doing is going over Pokemon cards, at least to see what the general market is doing. We're going to be doing a 10-minute just short video on what's going on in the world of Pokemon cards. So we're going to do this quick and dirty. We're just going to take a look at basically what's selling right now. Just general Pokemon cards. We're just going to do a single card to make it easy on us, okay? We're going to do a couple things. We're going to see what's sold, and we're going to see what's selling this week, okay? Alright, so we're going to scroll down here. Basically on eBay. Let me adjust this here for us because it is not adjusted. So let me do that. There we go. All right. I think that's better. Okay, that'll do for now. Anyway, just turn this up. First time around is gonna have a few bugs, so it's okay. All right. Anyway, so these are what's up for sale. It doesn't really tell us anything about the market in general. We're gonna see what's sold. Okay. So we're gonna take a look at just a few things that are selling at the moment. If they happen to be, we're gonna start adding in price ranges. Okay, we're gonna basically be looking as a minimum price of, let's say, $100. Okay, so things that sold very recently, like today, of $100 includes a Mewtwo Prism from 1998 from the Japanese Bandai card, a holo. Okay, so here we can see maybe, well, anyway, here we'll see the post itself. Okay, we'll be able to see what it was in particular. So it's a holographic of the image of it in the movie, of the Mewtwo armored in the movie. So it must have been just one particular, a lot of us didn't come across this. It was probably a Japanese only exclusive. Alright, so let's go back real quick. We're going to run down a lot with the Charizard First Edition Shadowless, 81 cards. We don't know exactly the condition, but it went for $100. Okay, so a Charizard Shadowless First Edition is generally what's considered to be like kind of the holy grail. Not graded, with a bunch of other cards, so we don't know what was in there. This went generally pretty cheap because a Charizard First Edition Shadowless just by itself tends to get quite a bit. So that one was a good buy. We have a PSA graded 9, a Shadowless Pikachu, and it happens to also have red cheeks, and it's a promo card. and it looks like it's shadowless. Let's take a quick look. It is, and it's an E3 red cheeks. Interesting. Pikachu. So not only, if you can see around the border of the way you can tell is the bottom would be the bottom right corner. So it would be my left, your right. So bottom left corner is generally where you don't see a shadow, where you see it as matte as you see it on the left. And that's basically what shadowless means. It wasn't basically what was supposed to be the default. It was kind of almost an error that in later iterations they corrected and they gave it the proper shadow. So it's rare for a card to not have a shadow, and it actually was only off of the first printings and generally reserved to California. Anything that happened to be released to California, I think, or in California during like 1999, etc., when the English version of the game came out, is when shadowless basically existed. So it was a very short amount of time, and during basically the first printing of the first set. Later on, there were subsequent sets, and they all had shadows basically. And so that's how you can tell whether or not it was a very early edition of the card. All right, so right now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep going here. So as a 9 with an E3 stamp, this got basically, this sold for $600. So that's not bad. That's pretty good. And that was like just sitting there to be sold. A staff version of the Gyarados. Generally, when there are new cards that are released, this is for evolutions. Generally, there are cards given to staff that happen to be running the events themselves. They'll get particular bundles and stuff with a random card of a few different featured Pokemon. One of them for the Evolutions release was the Gyarados. And so Evolutions was basically a throwback to what was the first iteration of Pokemon, basically the 1999 version of cards. But they have slight differences. Along the bottom of the card, you'll see that there's like bunched up to one side the weakness and the resistance cost. On the originals, they're basically all along the bottom, flattened out. And the text, the flavor text or whatnot, what you would call flavor text, is I think also along the bottom, but above what is the cost, I believe. All the, basically the art that happens to be on the card is the same. The card information is generally the same, but the art along the bottom of it is what is different. And you can see on the bottom right corner there is a symbol basically for the Evolutions series. On the originals, like this one here, on some of them, they will have whether or not it's a first edition, and also whether or not what particular, let's see, which particular right here, which particular series they came from. If it's the very first season, if it's the base set, it won't have anything. It'll just say basically, it won't say anything. It's because it's the base set. So this card, which is given to staff for the Evolutions release, basically somebody paid $120 US. So that's pretty cool. Okay. All right. So apart from what is just what's kind of selling, so somebody sold like an E series. Okay. That's generally for this little E that happens to be shown here. Okay. Take a look at the E that's here, which is the same E that's right here. This is what's called the E series. It generally has what looks like almost like a barcode along the side, but these are generally pretty rare. This is a Japanese version, okay? So that's also something that adds to, it's not as rare. Something that would probably be more rare is the English version of these cards, because it was actually during a time where Pokemon was not as popular, so they didn't make as many. But this one sold for $125. This one's a perfect gem mint. So that's actually decently cheap, considering that it's, well, as far as E-Series cards go. So that's a pretty decent price, in my opinion. Alright, right now, we're going to switch it up real quick. As part of the recap, we're going to go to the highest. Let's see what sold for the most. Interesting. Okay. So these cards are part of some of these are part of what's called the Tropical Mega Battle. It was basically a tournament that was held, and some players were invited to play in what's called the Tropical Mega Battle. And I think these were... Let's take a look at them real quick. Alright, these guys... Let me make sure that you guys get the whole window here. There you go. Alright. There's basically the whole thing. Alright. Okay, and these guys, they're cut in a very different manner altogether, it looks like. And they don't have a second picture, which is really weird. So they're cut in a different form. If you can see right there, that's from the 95, 98 years, which could only exist in Japanese because the English version didn't actually start till 99. Yeah. There were only 3 of these, which were the Moltres, the Zapdos, and the Articuno. These are some of the more unique high-end prizes from 99. Yeah, so it was a tournament. Cool. So that went for an astonishing $23,999. That's pretty amazing. US dollars. Plus $80 for fast shipping. Somebody belted out $24,000 plus $80 for shipping. All right. Next is they basically have it misnamed, and this is a shadowless first edition Charizard. Okay, this is actually, I would almost say this was a pretty cheap price, considering what I think that the highest card, the most valuable card or sought after card is basically going for. This one pretty cheap. Alright, so the name is correct, the card is correct, the shadowless feature is correct, which is right here, as I was saying before. It is first edition. As you see right here, the weakness and stuff is up here, but it's scattered across, and the flavor text is scattered across along the bottom. It's still 95, and then for the shadowless also you have this extra date right here, which is the 99. The centering along the bottom looks to be just a little bit, that could probably be part of the reason why it was a 9 and not, it could be a different reason also. It could be like a little portion right there that's a little bit misshapen. It could be very, very, very small imperfections that could lead to this being a 9 instead of a 10. But it's a very good, yeah, it's basically, I think it's the back centering. It would probably let it be a 9 instead. And or maybe a very slight amount of bending around the side right here. That'll do it. That'll do it. Any sort of like white marks along the edge, basically if this thing ever set foot outside of its original package, and it happened to hit a corner of any kind, most likely you're probably going to get a little white mark, because this blue was so blue, any imperfection would basically kind of chip away the blue ink, and so you would have a white mark, so that would take away from the value of the card. So this one basically sold for 20,000 US. I'd be interested to see what we could take a look right now to see what's to buy it now for a PSA 10 of the Shadowless. So let's take a look at that real fast before we continue. So we'll do that right now. All right, so this one, yeah, this is one of the bigger cards in the market, and that one sold for 20,000. So these are kind of different and interesting to me because I don't really see these too often. Hold on a second. Alright. Zoom in a little bit more. An albino Zapdos, hollow misprint. I don't know if that's a misprint or if it was basically bleached, but considering that the yellow is so yellow along the outside, it may just have been. So that's kind of interesting. Somebody made an offer on somebody. Well, there's definitely a Charizard right there. We have an Ultra Ball signed, the first edition. I guess Ultra Balls are really collectible. Wow. We have a number 2 trainer, second place trophy from 2010. Somebody basically paid pretty much, or close to paid, 10,000. Let's take a quick look. So it doesn't say the price, or this may be the price itself. Sold for, it says 10,000. Okay. Alright. Sold for 10,000. So a trophy that somebody won, second place, it's not even first place. Somebody sold for 10 grand. Japanese hollow from the 1995 Top Sun. It's probably like a magazine or something like that. 10,000 for PSA 10 for basically a perfect card. Champions Festival, Stamp World, Pikachu card. Dang, wow, 10,000. Alright, so we have. Sometimes this can happen where something can sell on different days for the same amount of price. It's not necessarily that this guy. He may have different lots that he sold, and he basically used the same picture. Or he may have sold it and then whoever it was that had it didn't actually want it or never paid, and so he put it back on the market and then it sold again. So we don't know exactly what happened there, but it looks like it may have sold. Alright, we have a PSA 9. It's what they call a strong Shadowless. It may or may not have been that. That's just this person's like opinion of whether or not it's a strong one, meaning that somebody could potentially crack the case, resubmit it, and potentially get a 10 on it. So that's what they mean. Sometimes people do that. It greatly increases the amount of 9s available and keeps the number of 10s relatively low, and you're not guaranteed to get a 10 if you have it graded again by somebody else. So that's really tough. Alright, but in either case, this one is not actually. Somebody may have gotten tricked here, because one, this is not Shadowless for one. Let me make sure that this is right here. Hold on a second, guys. There we go. All right, if you can see here, there is a shadow here. So this is what I'm talking about. This is a shadow. It is a first edition. I'm not actually sure. You know what? They may exist in shadowless form. I have to double check, but this is not shadowless. So their sale was not correct, but it does look pretty pristine. But somebody sold this for $7,000. Somebody bid on it and sold it for $7,000. That's pretty amazing, actually. So, but it shows as no sold, or at least no no feedback, which is fine because it could still be, they could still have sold something but not have any feedback, which is fine. Heavy play. Condition is new. Wow. Okay, so this guy had all kinds of like a contradictory information. It's kind of weird. I'm not too sure what to make of that one. That one's pretty odd. But yeah, so that's, and another one that sold it as a PSA 9 for first edition. This one sold for basically half as much as the other one that sold for basically for $10,000. The difference being this is basically an auction price and the other is a basically buy it now price. So somebody did take a best offer for it, but they were still able to get more for it because they just let it, they were confident what more or less what price that they could get for it. But that's okay, so price can range depending on how you sell it, whether or not it's an auction or set it for sale, between basically $5,500 and $20,000. That's quite a range still. And to just back that up, here's a different one, basically $57,000 at 40 bids. Alright, so we were going to, what were we going to do next? We were going to show I think that was it for now. Yeah, I think that was it. So that's the kind of different cards that are selling right now for pretty high prices. Charizard of the original base set in shadowless form is always going to go pretty high. There's going to be some collections that get a pretty high amount. The second up is it's no real surprise that a Dark Charizard from the basically the Rocket version of the game goes for a pretty high amount. Trophies can go for a really high amount, and yeah, there's a shiny version. I think this one may only come in Japanese. I'm not exactly sure. There's one version of the Magikarp, the shiny Magikarp, that only comes in Japanese, but that one went for $4,800. That's a lot. I once had a Japanese version of the shiny Charizard, and the PSA 10 version of the English looks like went for $4,500. That's a lot. Wow. Okay, so basically 10,050 of the Ancient Muse went for $4,500. So a box basically that a cinema was set to give away, that they probably never gave away, went to some employee, and then they sold it for $4,500. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Okay, this one's pretty interesting because somebody bought this card raw, not graded. It said basically it's a card lot. So there's a bunch of other cards that were included. That's pretty rough. That's a high amount. That's for it not being graded, that's pretty high. But it does look pretty clean. If we take a look at the picture here, which we can't really get a up close picture, I'm not exactly sure why. The edges look clean. The centering looks okay. The top centering actually looks okay. Side centering looks fine. Apart from not being able to see like different angles of the face front, generally if you're buying something raw, you want to see different angles with the light so that you can see whether or not you have the death by 1,000 cuts or not from being pulled out and put back into a sleeve, especially if it's not double sleeved. If each card is not double sleeved itself, which is it not gonna let me? Nope, not gonna let me do it. All right, especially if the cards are not double sleeved, which it doesn't necessarily look like it's happening right here. So when they take it out, they are probably gonna have some damage happen to it. But this whole lot sold for $4,000, so that's a lot. That's a lot of money. Okay, so that's basically part of what the market looks like right now. If there's any particular series of cards or like a generation of cards, X and Y, Ruby, Silver and Gold, etc. If there's a generation of cards or a particular Pokemon that you want to look at, yeah, send me a message and we'll go over it. I'm also going to be doing this in Spanish, so hold on to your hats. That's going to be a different video. So here we go. All right, I'm going to do that in Spanish. I'm going to end the stream and then I'm going to do another one. All right, see you guys. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Bye.